I need your help to save my farm and many other farms. We are possibly going to lose our farm if NRCS doesn't hold up their contract with us on the EQIP program. So the reason that they're not able to hold up the contract is our EQIP program, which is cost sharing on fences, waters, a well, and some seedings, was funded by the Inflation Reduction Act. Because of the executive orders, there's a pause or a freeze on the funding through the Inflation Reduction Act, and they're not able to pay out on the stuff that we completed or anything going forward.
That was Skylar Holden of Cattleman Family Farms, and he went viral on TikTok after pleading with his followers to call their senators and representatives on his behalf in an effort to save his family farm. Now, a lot of folks weren't very sympathetic towards him after he made it clear that he voted for Donald Trump, who is the president that enacted the federal funding freeze that fucked him over in the first place. So a lot of people basically responded by saying, fuck around, find out. But before we talk about his response to those people, he did explain in more detail why this move specifically threatens his farm.
The issue I have is I've already done a bunch of the work, already paid for the material, already paid for the labor, so I'm out all that cost, and I use my farm operating expenses in order to do those projects, because per contract, I knew that I was going to get cost sharing refunds on the stuff once completed, but now that it's completed, they're saying that they're unable to provide the funds because of the freeze on the Inflation Reduction Act funds. You know, Trump's in office and they've got that DOGE program, the Department of Government Efficiency. So they're trying to cut out all the wasteful spending in the government, which I'm all for. But the issue is it's a signed contract. It's a legally binding contract. They're not backing out on it. They're not paying out on it. So it puts me in a bind because I've made business decisions based on that contract.
And therein lies the problem. If he doesn't get that money, then he's on the hook for hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars. And other farmers are in the same boat. So this is an actual existential threat to farmers across the country. But as you saw, he said he was sympathetic towards DOGE's effort to eliminate government waste. And I do want to address that first before we get to anything else, because that's just not true. And a lot of people actually think that this is what's happening, not just him. First and foremost, claims about government contracts to Politico or funding for condoms in Gaza are either widely misrepresented, if not outright false. And there are probably instances where spending is wasteful. I'm willing to admit that. But Elon Musk specifically is targeting agencies that are regulatory threats to his companies, right? He's not trying to figure out how to save taxpayers' money. He's trying to figure out how to save himself money. And Crystal Ball laid this out in a brilliant TikTok.
Elon is trying to position Twitter as an everything app. He just signed a deal with Visa that would allow it to be a payment processor, and as a payment processor was about to be regulated by the CFPB. Well, that agency has now been gutted. They've announced they're doing no more enforcement, no more rulemaking. Everything is on hold. And guess what? Now, those payment processors not going to be regulated by the CFPB. But that is far from all. Of course, Elon has taken aim at the USAID. They're effectively gutted at this point. Just so happens they were investigating Starlink, of course, another Elon product, their use in Ukraine. But that also is not all. The National Labor Relations Board, so they've gone after Elon for all sorts of behavior. They regulate workers' ability to organize. They make decisions when there's a dispute between the companies and between the workers. Elon is a famous union buster, strike buster. They've gone after him for retaliating against workers. He sued them, claiming, without much standing, but claiming that the entire board is unconstitutional and trying to dismantle the whole thing. Well, now the National Labor Relations Board has been gutted, and they're not even defending themselves in that lawsuit that Elon Musk's companies have brought against the National Labor Relations Board. The Federal Aviation Administration, also Elon has taken aim at. Well, lo and behold, they have investigated him over illegal rocket launches over at SpaceX. Department of Labor was investigating him for allegations of workplace discrimination, including some truly horrific allegations, use of the N-word in the workplace, nooses were somehow involved. Well, lo and behold, the specific department called the Office of Federal Contract Compliance Programs that was looking into these allegations, well, Trump signed an executive order completely dismantling the whole thing, so guess he's off the hook for that as well.
And that's what this is about. So these stories about money being spent on ostensibly unnecessary research or woke grants is a red herring. I mean, if you look at some of the things that they're cutting aid to people who need it. Life-saving aid, aid for cancer research. And they're doing this to make it seem as if they're being productive, when in actuality, Elon Musk is trying to fuck all of us over to benefit his companies. I mean, when he says that, oh, we found this dumb thing, he's lying most of the time, but what he's doing is trying to distract you from the real goal, which is to hollow out government agencies that threaten his bottom line. He's doing it for him, not for us. So I need people to understand that. Furthermore, he doesn't have the authority to veto funding for programs that Congress already appropriated money for. So what we're seeing here is peak corruption. And if you're wondering whether or not all of this sounds like a conflict of interest, you'd be correct. But don't worry, because the White House is leaving it up to Elon Musk to police his own conflicts of interest. So just great. I'm sure that the world's richest man, who also happens to be a Nazi and a ketamine addict, isn't going to behave in a self-serving way. Now, I wanted to respond to that first because Elon Musk is conducting this audit for himself, not in the name of altruism. And it's getting to me that so many people, just regular people, actually think that this is good. They don't understand how bad it is. It's bullshit. But I do want to get back to the farmer because people asked him why he voted for Donald Trump, knowing that he could be targeted as a beneficiary of the Inflation Reduction Act, since Donald Trump pledged to undo everything that the Biden administration did. Now, as you're going to see, when he was asked these questions, he did get pretty defensive at first.
I'm trying to hear your perspectives, and every time I do, and every time I try to engage on it, you guys push me away. You guys ask me, why did you vote for Trump, or how did you come to the conclusion to vote for Trump? So I explained to you what I do. I got on that quiz online, I punched in the information, and it spits out the best candidate that fits my views. And I ask you guys to do the same thing, so that way to see if it lines up with your views, to kind of fact check what I'm looking at to see if that's something that's not biased. And you guys are telling me, well, it didn't work out for you, so I'm not going to do it. It's like, I'm trying to fact check it. You guys are telling me to fact check stuff. I'm trying to fact check it. I'm trying to listen to you guys, but you guys are pushing me away. And that's what's wrong. And that's what I'm trying to explain to you guys. There's a lot of people that are wanting to listen to you right now. Here's an opportunity for the people who are opening their eyes. They're trying to listen to you, but you're saying it's too late and you don't want to have the conversations now.
So this feels like a cop-out to me, I'll be honest. I mean, sure, the quiz you took might have recommended that you vote for Trump based on certain policy preferences that you plugged in, but you're an adult. You have agency over your own actions at the end of the day. If you did not know that Trump incited an insurrection in 2020 and had plans to dismantle checks and balances, things the quiz didn't probably ask you about, then I mean, I don't know what to say. It's still your fault, right? The quiz didn't force you to vote for Donald Trump. And if you didn't feel like you were informed enough before you casted your vote, you should have not voted. Okay, and that's why people are struggling to sympathize with you, because you voted affirmatively for a man that ran on mass deportation, which is a policy that would destroy millions of lives. But now that his policies could destroy your life, well, now you're taking the time to inform yourself and do a little bit of research and be introspective. And it's just frustrating for people in your comment sections. But I think that what he's expressing here, it speaks to a broader selfish mentality that so many Americans have. They just literally do not give a shit about anyone but themselves, because from a young age, we're taught that it's virtuous to be greedy and that capitalism isn't just good, it's the only legitimate system ever devised by humankind. And our media also reinforces this idea that we're the center of the universe, but that's not how it works. We share a country with hundreds of millions of people on a planet with billions of people that's orbiting around a random star in some random ass galaxy. We're basically specks of dust in the grand scheme of things. The world does not revolve around us. So we have to start caring about other people, even if we're never going to meet them, because we all have the same experience on this rock, and we're only here for a very short period of time, and then we're gone forever like that. So we need to make sure that we're doing everything in our power to make sure that other people aren't suffering for the entirety of their short existence here. But unfortunately, so many people don't come to that realization until they're forced to grapple with the consequences of their own actions and think, wow, if I don't like this, maybe others won't like this too. It's really frustrating. With that being said, you're listening to people. And I think that's good. I'll take it. Better late than never, right? And the good news is that Skylar, he does seem to have an open mind after initially being defensive because, he talked to some people and he explained that he talked to people and now his mind has been opened and he's listening.
The biggest question for me is, would you still be open if you weren't affected? Because that's why I vote the way I do, not to self-preserve, but for the greater good of everyone. A couple hours ago, I had a journalist from the New York Times that I had recently done an interview with reach out to me and let me know that there was a federal court that deemed the executive orders that Trump signed freezing the IRA funds was unlawful and they would have to unfreeze those funds. So right now, I'm no longer affected, but I'm still here and I'm still listening to you guys. I still want to hear all of your guys' stories. But I'm not going to lie to you. I wouldn't have had these conversations if it wouldn't have affected me. It just wouldn't have happened, and that's wrong. But this is eye-opening to me, and there's a lot of people that it opened their eyes, and I hope you guys take advantage of the opportunity that's here in front of us. There's a lot of people that are willing to listen to you now. As long as we have these engaged conversations where we're actively listening, we're actively talking to each other, we're hearing both sides of what's going on, this is where change happens. I have had many conversations in my messages with people of all diverse backgrounds that belong to the LGBTQ community. That's a group that I've never listened to before because it didn't affect me. I'm hearing their stories. I'm hearing their perspectives on what's going on, and I'm listening to them. That's something I would not have done if this wouldn't have affected me. So now a lot of people's eyes are open because they got affected by this, and I hope everybody engages and hope everybody has those conversations.
Hey, kudos to him for being open and honest about that and actually listening to people who are criticizing him, because it's easy to get defensive, especially when you're experiencing a crisis. So I'm happy to see him have an open mind. Now, the bad news for Skylar is that he may not be out of the woods yet because a federal judge ruled that the Trump administration isn't complying with orders to unfreeze federal grants, and they're currently appealing the ruling in court, so they want to freeze grants again. And on top of that, Trump, J.D. Vance, Mike Johnson, Elon Musk, they've all made it clear that if they want to, they could just ignore the courts. And, the courts don't have an enforcement mechanism. So if they actually choose to do that, there's nothing that we can do about that. Trump can technically choose to just not comply, and there would be no way to penalize him for that. The Supreme Court granted him near absolute immunity. And at that point in time, we're all just kind of up shit creek without a paddle, and he is the government, right? So the courts might not actually be able to save us from Trump, because he's an authoritarian who wants to eliminate all checks and balances, which is another reason why so many of us feared what would happen if he got elected again. But having said that, again, I appreciate Skylar's open-mindedness. We recently talked about a woman named Myra Aluna on the show who also felt betrayed by Donald Trump after voting for him and then learning that her grandfather was at risk of deportation. And like Skylar, she was also defensive initially, but eventually came around. And hey, I'm all for this, right? I think that we should welcome people that change their minds. I support restorative justice, and I think that the left and liberals should be open to people like Skylar and Myra after they express a genuine change of heart. But logistically speaking, this isn't going to result in widespread change because, there's just not enough Trump supporters who are changing their minds. But that doesn't mean that we shouldn't try to change as many minds as possible. And I want to be clear that the overwhelming majority of Trump supporters still have not abandoned him. So I don't want to give you the impression that these instances of voters abandoning Trump is representative of the broader MAGA movement, because that's just not true. Some of them will never abandon him. But it is important to try to instill class consciousness in the ones that do. And even though those numbers are still small at this point, it's still significant that so many people, just a couple of weeks into his administration, are saying they don't like what he's doing, right? These people do exist. And some are turning on MAGA in a major, major way. For example, Reddit user BBB Step posted screenshots of this 3-time Trump supporter's tweets to the Leopards Ate My Face subreddit. And as you're going to see, this individual is not very happy with Donald Trump, and she's taken her dislike of him to an extreme. She says, "Real Donald Trump, I voted for you 3 times and donated numerous times as they hauled you into court. But if you fucking think you will use American taxpayer money to rebuild Gaza, you are as insane as they say you are. I will fight as hard against you as I did for you. You have lost your fucking mind, pal." And she goes on to say, "I will understand why someone takes you out." So she went from being a 3-time Trump supporter to wanting him to die, because she's that mad at the prospect of her taxpayer money being spent on Gaza. She didn't have a problem, apparently, when Congress sent Israel money to bomb the people of Gaza, but the prospect of us righting the wrong and rebuilding what we destroyed is just too much for her to bear. And to be clear, Trump isn't trying to develop Gaza for altruistic reasons or for the people of Gaza. He's trying to annex Gaza so his son-in-law can set up beachfront condos there and sell them for millions of dollars. And his goal ultimately is to permanently displace the people of Gaza. So fortunately for this person, the people of Gaza aren't going to benefit from her money. So congratulations, I guess. I hope that makes you feel better. But clearly, this person is so far removed from reality that even though they're abandoning Donald Trump, they still probably can't be reasoned with. But there is more. So Reddit user I'm Questionable shared a post from a woman who voted for Donald Trump knowing that Project 2025 was a possibility, but I guess she didn't expect him to actually do it and voted for him anyways. And after his first week in office, that was enough for her to want to flee the United States because she's afraid of how Project 2025 is going to affect her personally. And I mean, it's a tale as old as time, right? You vote for Donald Trump thinking that he's only going to fuck over everyone else, marginalized groups that you don't like. But once you realize he's going to fuck you over too, well, then that's when the regret sets in. And a lot of Trump voters who likely voted for him for the purpose of economic anxiety, they're also starting to figure out that, oh, it seems like he's not actually interested in bringing down the cost of groceries like he said he would on the campaign trail. The Daily Beast reports, early polling data from Trump's first days in office showed that the speed of the president's executive orders concerned about half the country. Among those feeling anxiety are the president's own voters. Quote, I don't like the turbulence, Trump voter Paul Bisson told the Wall Street Journal. I don't like the chaos in the market. Bisson, 58, creates proposals for a flight safety company and co-owns a dog daycare in San Antonio, Texas. Bisson says he wants to retire soon, but worries Trump's policies will make the economy worse. He continued, that's not what we signed up for. I'm so sorry, Mr. Bisson. I totally understand. You voted for Donald Trump because you wanted him to fuck over immigrants, not you. I get it. Yet, you're getting fucked over. That's the way the world works, I guess, right? Now, others are coming to the same realization as well. And there's a lot of people posting under the hashtag Leaving MAGA on TikTok. And one account actually put together a compilation of people that are just genuinely distraught by the fact that they voted for this man for various reasons. And I just want to play that for you just to show you that, like, this isn't necessarily a case where there's only isolated incidents. I mean, the numbers are small still, but people have very quickly come to regret their decisions, as you're going to see.
I was a dumbass, voted for Trump. It was the worst decision I ever made.
I've seen the light, and I got out of MAGA. A lot of us there have seen the light. We have deep regrets.
I feel guilty because I voted for Trump twice. I feel very guilty because I feel responsible. That's why he's still running.
I was with Trump for 9 straight years. I'm disappointed. I'm very disappointed in Trump right now. I'm no longer rocking with Trump.
I used to be a MAGA Republican, and now I've turned blue.
And it makes me emotional to know that I ever fucking stood by idly and blind and let that shit happen.
Because I know that I have been a Trump supporter, and I can no longer say that I am MAGA. And
I regret my vote for Trump.
I voted for Trump. I'm done. I don't have any more resilience in me.
Again, this is in no way representative of the broader MAGA base, but it's still good to see that some people are at least starting to see the light. And I'm not going to shit on people for admitting that they're wrong, because it's a very hard thing to do, especially on the internet. Trust me, I know. But I do think that it's okay for us to be frustrated with people whose decisions affect us, right? That's just human. And if they're going to ask for forgiveness, they have to understand where people are coming from who are saying, well, you kind of fucked around and found out, right? But I still think that we should give them at least some grace. I think that we should try to explain to them how immigrants aren't the enemy, neither are trans people, as Laverne Cox put it. You're focusing on the wrong 1%. But the common enemy, and we have to explain this to them, is the guy who's rewiring government agencies as we speak to the benefit of his companies and other billionaires. So it has to be explained. Even though it's common sense to you and me, this is something that we have to explain to them. We have to connect the dots. I think most Americans know that money in politics and corruption is a problem, and that billionaires are a problem, and income and wealth inequality is a problem, but you have to make it explicit for them. You have to connect the dots, because if they don't have a clear and vivid understanding of what's being done, how they're being robbed, then they're just going to be easily distracted by red herrings or by divisive white identity politics. Having said that, there are people who should know better. Not all of them are misguided MAGA supporters with economic anxiety who just didn't know how bad it would be. Like, some of them actually understand what they got themselves into when they voted. For example, there's Malik Abdul, who is a Republican strategist and also a member of the Black Americans for Trump coalition, and on CNN in the second week of Trump's term, even he admitted that it's really hard to defend Donald Trump as a GOP strategist and a Republican because the economic promises that they thought Trump made are being obscured by his overt racism and hyper-focus on DEI.
Donald Trump appealing to these people in his second week when we're not talking about the economy. We're not talking about any of that. We're talking about DEI, and he had no evidence, and people are out there defending it. I'm not going to get on television to defend it. I want Donald Trump to know you are making it hard for us who are not looking for a payout or some sort of association or the social media influence behind supporting Donald Trump or any politician. We want to support you because we believe in what you're doing, and when you get out here and do this stuff around DEI, knowing that this support that he's gotten from black people, this uptick, it's not permanent. Meaning that you're going to
I don't see how you can support him. I have to be honest. I don't see how you can make excuses for him. I don't see how you can try to explain it.
A lot of people don't have
this
to.
Is Donald Trump.
I get it.
You know that, right? Like, this is not like a show. This is actually who Donald Trump is. It's part of the
technology
package.
terms called this is a feature, not a bug.
Exactly. And I think that Malik believes that he can somehow convince Donald Trump to not be racist by appealing to the sheer politics of it all, like the campaign promises or his desire to be popular. But Trump doesn't give a shit. And that's what so many people don't realize. He does not give a shit. He won the election and now he can do whatever he wants. And he is doing whatever he wants. And unfortunately, what he wants to do is be extremely racist. He just signed an executive order to allow South African immigrants to move to the country if they're of European descent, if they're white. I mean, he's just not even trying to hide it. And that's, I think part of Elon Musk's influence, who is a Nazi, who also thinks that there's a white genocide against the white people in South Africa after they had an apartheid regime. But I mean, it's not like Trump even made that sound of economic arguments in the first place. I think a lot of this election kind of boiled down to Americans just not feeling stable economically, so they voted against the incumbents. But at the end of the day, Trump, sure, his economic arguments were basically, hey, no tax on tips, which isn't actually a good policy for workers. There's better things that you can do. And, blame immigrants and DEI for all of your economic woes. I mean, that's not necessarily the most sound economic argument. And that's when he was talking about economics or inflation at all. Like other times, he was pantomiming dick sucking and talking about Arnold Palmer's penis size. Like, this is not a serious candidate. So, I feel like this substance and sane washing that so many people ascribe to Trump, it's just not there. You projected sanity onto a man that is completely mentally unstable. Now, what Malik is expressing is, I think, cognitive dissonance, like other former Trump supporters who knew that it would be bad, but they were just crossing their fingers and hoping that it wouldn't be as bad as they thought, or they hoped that they wouldn't be affected by Trump's fucked up policies, that he wouldn't come for them. But I mean, someone like Malik, who is literally a Republican strategist, they know better. And he's not going to be persuaded by us. So the reason why I bring up Malik is because we have to try to figure out who's gettable and who's too far gone, or whether or not they have a financial interest in supporting Donald Trump. Either way, we have to do what we can to win over the people that are winnable to the extent that we can. And that means we have to know when to cut our losses and give up on certain folks. Because a sad fact of reality is that millions of Americans are just too far gone. They're never going to come back to reality, and they are living in an alternate world than the rest of us. Empirical reality has no bearing on their beliefs. But the bleak truth is that it might be too late. I talk a lot about trying to awaken class consciousness, but undoing this level of brainwashing is going to be a multi-generational project. And quite frankly, we don't have the time for that. The planet can't wait that long. And assuming that we're able to make progress and actually awaken a newfound class consciousness among millions of people, the capitalist class is going to find new ways to dupe them, new means of propaganda to get them to hate their peers in the working class again. So, I mean, we're talking about truly a Sisyphusian task here, because we basically have to change American culture to really target that inherent selfishness of the American people. But with that being said, even though it feels utterly hopeless, we still have to try, because we officially lose when we give up. And I don't think we should give up, even though it looks bad. So, we've just got to do what we can to change hearts and minds, one person at a time. So good luck, everyone, with that.
Play stupid games, win stupid prizes. Play stupid games, win stupid prizes. Play stupid games, win stupid prizes. Play stupid games.
F around and find out.
Prizes. Play stupid games, win stupid prizes.
Play stupid games, win stupid prizes. Play stupid games, win stupid prizes. Play stupid game. Pride. Trans rights are human rights. It is necessary to push trans on the kids. Pride.